Hello there, mystery fans. Did you know that we depend on your support to keep making Bust or Trust?
If you subscribe and support Bust or Trust on Patreon or Apple Podcasts, you'll get access to weekly subscriber bonus episodes with extra evidence, ad-free listening, and early access to all our episodes.
And you'll get our weekly newsletter full of fun facts, book recommendations, fun new words, and a monthly colouring poster to print at home, featuring some of the weirdest and wildest mysteries we've investigated.
To support the show and get access to all these great goodies, just click subscribe in Apple Podcasts, subscribe to Patreon via Spotify, or visit patreon.com/Bust or Trust podcast. Or for more information, visit our website at bustortrust.com.
Hello, parents, homeschoolers, and teachers. Trusty narrator here from the Who Smarted podcast. Our 15-minute episodes are perfect for car rides, bedtime, break time, class time, or anytime. We make learning science and history fun and funny for 7 to 11-year-olds with new episodes every week. Look for Who Smarted on any podcast platform or at whosmarted.com. And teachers get a free subscription to our ad-free version by clicking educators at whosmarted.com.
Hello and welcome to Bust or Trust, a kids' mystery podcast. I'm Tiernan.
And I'm Athena. Bust or Trust is the podcast where we unravel the world's greatest mysteries with help from you, our chief detectives.
We present all the best evidence and then ask you to decide. Which team are you on?
Are you a myth buster like me?
Or are you a myth truster like me? We look into all sorts of strange stories from around the world to find out what really happened, so that you can ask, is it real or is it false?
Is it fact or is it fiction?
Is it time for lunch yet?
No, you've only just had breakfast.
Boo! We'll tell you at the end of the show just how to get in touch so you can let us know if you're on Team Buster or the best one, Team Truster.
So, chief detectives, get ready to take notes and start putting together your case, while we have a quick word with the grown-ups.
The case.
Chief detectives, this week we are looking at the case of Aphra Behn, a famous playwright, poet and spy who lived in the 1600s.
Ah, right. What's the case? Did she not exist? Was she an alien?
Nope, she definitely existed, but no one knows for certain where and when she was born or any of the details about when she was young. You know, just like me.
What do you mean? You're Athena and you come from London, don't you?
Do I? Can you prove it? Are you even sure that my name is really Athena?
Well, I was, but now I'm not so sure. I can't believe I might have been working with a spy using a secret identity all this time. Is this because Team Truster keeps getting too close to the truth and you have to shut us down? I knew it!
I'm only kidding. I am Athena and I am from London.
Phew!
Or am I?
This is terrible. I might be sharing Bust or Trust HQ with an imposter.
Well, I'm so good, you've got no way of knowing. So, why don't you try to take your mind off whether I'm an imposter or not by telling the chief detectives all about Aphra Behn.
OK, Athena, if that is your name. Aphra Behn was an English playwright, translator and poet in what's known as the Restoration era. This is the name for the period of time in England in the late 1600s when a royal family known as the House of Stuart were returned to the throne, starting with King Charles II. Aphra Behn was a supporter of the king, and after working in the courts, she was hired by King Charles II as a spy. She used a code name and lived in Antwerp, Belgium, in order to turn people against the Dutch royalty during their Second War with England.
But King Charles II didn't pay his spies much money, and when Aphra Behn returned to London, she was very poor. It's thought she had to spend time in a debtor's prison. That's a place where people were sent if they couldn't afford to pay their bills. Once released, Behn began a career writing plays for the stage, and she became part of an important cultural and social scene. Some of her plays were very political and caused a lot of controversy, leading Aphra Behn to return to novels and stories until her death in 1689.
Aphra Behn's many works are very well known, as well as all the writing she did under a number of different names. But there's still a lot of her life that's a complete mystery, like where she was born, who her family were, and if she was married. It may even be that Aphra Behn wasn't her real name after all, and it was just one of her many pseudonyms. A pseudonym is a fake name, often used by authors.
So today, we're going to slightly swap roles actually, as I don't think we'll ever know what Aphra Behn's past is, because she was such a brilliant spy.
So is the real Athena actually a team truster? Your true colours are showing.
No way, this real Athena will just be busting any attempt you make to prove that we know anything about Aphra Behn's past.
OK, and Chief Detectives, you'll have to decide if Aphra Behn's past is really a mystery.
Right then, come on Tiernan, where's your evidence proving that we do know all about her early life?
Well, if you aren't the person I thought I was working with, maybe I don't have to present any. And also, there's not really evidence this week.
Ah, you admit it. Well, that's an easy Team Buster win then, isn't it?
No, I mean there's no evidence because I have 3 theories instead. A theory is an idea that's used to explain facts or events. So this week, Dave, can you change it up a bit, please, and bring us the
First theory.
The first theory is that Aphra Behn's real name was actually Aphra Johnson, because there's a baptism certificate that proves it. It's from December the 14th, 1640, and it's in the name of Aphra Johnson. There's no birth certificate for the name Aphra Behn, but a baptism certificate is proof of the date someone was baptised into the Catholic Church. In the 1600s, that was usually within 3 days of someone being born.
OK, but some people were baptised months after they were born, and you're saying it's a certificate for Aphra Johnson. That's not Aphra Behn's name, is it? Who's this Aphra Johnson?
Remember we mentioned that Aphra Behn wrote under many different names and had spy code names too. It's very hard to know if Aphra Behn was her real name either. An essay by an unidentified author was attached to a collection of Aphra Behn's works in 1696, titled The Histories and Novels of the Late Ingenious Aphra Behn. In this short piece, it says that Aphra was the daughter of Mr. and Mrs. John Johnson of Canterbury in Kent. Johnson was related to Lord Willoughby, a member of the House of Lords, who governed over English colonies in the Caribbean. Lord Willoughby made John Johnson the Lieutenant General of Suriname in South America. It's not mentioned anywhere if Aphra, or Aphra, was Johnson's natural child or if he adopted her, but it's thought she travelled to the Caribbean with him, her mother and her brother in 1663. The idea was that they would all spend the rest of their lives there. Sadly, John Johnson died on their journey, and the rest of the family lived in Suriname for several months, which affected Aphra for the rest of her life. Her most famous novel, Orinoco, or The Royal Slave, is set in Suriname and must be based on her experiences there. In the book, she is the narrator and says that she's the daughter of the Lieutenant General. Some believe that this proves that John Johnson was her father in real life too.
Orinoco is a novel, a story, so there's no way to tell if any of it is real or not. Aphra was a brilliant and imaginative writer who knew how to research her work. If she had a character in mind for the narrator, there's nothing to say she hadn't looked into Suriname and the real Lieutenant General to find out what life there was really like.
It's also thought that when she was struggling for money as a spy in Belgium, that her mother had an audience with the king to secure her return to the UK. It wasn't easy getting to see the king, so that means Aphra Behn's family must have been very important and clearly part of the aristocracy. Aristocracy is the highest class in certain societies, so it's usually made up of people with great money and power, like royalty.
No one Aphra Behn was friends with or worked with ever mentioned her being from a wealthy family of aristocrats, and it might not have gone down that well with a group of writers and artists. Plus, we don't know who her mother was, so how does anyone know if Mrs. Behn met the king or not? And we still don't even know if Aphra Johnson is actually Aphra Behn or just someone else entirely. I'm sorry, Tiernan, but I have to bust this theory, as there's no way to prove that Aphra Behn comes from Canterbury and is the daughter of the Lieutenant General of Suriname. So her past is still a mystery.
Well, if she isn't part of that Johnson family, then as you'll see in a minute, we're at the fringe of another theory.
Is that meant to be a joke?
You'll get it in a minute. Patience. Here's the
Second theory.
Aphra Behn was the daughter of a barber.
I see. That wasn't worth the wait. Like a barber, you should have cut that.
It's too important to cut or even crop, because according to a biographer of the Poetry Foundation, Aphra Behn's parents were John Amos, who was a barber, and his wife Amy. They lived in Wye in Kent, and Aphra was born in 1640. This is backed up by a poet that Aphra worked with called Anne Finch, who wrote that she was the daughter of a barber. And it also works with what it says on her baptism certificate, which mentioned that she was baptised in Kent.
Again, though, there's no proof of any of this, and, confusingly, some of these accounts say her father wasn't called John Amos, but Bartholomew Johnson.
Which fits with the Johnson family theory.
Except that Bartholomew Johnson wasn't part of the aristocracy or a lieutenant general of Suriname.
But maybe people got muddled up with which Johnson family she was part of. Being a barber's daughter would make more sense in terms of her being accepted by a group of artists and writers later on, and her lack of money later in life causing her to go into debt.
You are right, except Aphra Behn clearly had a formal education. That means she was taught in a school or university. That was very rare for anyone from a working class background in the 1600s. Aphra Behn had an amazing knowledge of classical and current literature. She could speak multiple languages, and she knew how to meet and talk with people from all social circles. So she must have been part of a family that could afford to send her to school, which doesn't sound much like something a barber in the 17th century could do.
But you just said she couldn't have been the daughter of an aristocrat, so a barber would make more sense.
It would, but there's no evidence for any of them, and everything about her contradicts what we think we know, which is why her life is such a mystery, and why there is no way of knowing where she was born, what her name really was, or any of the early parts of her life.
Actually, there is one part we do know about, which I'll explain in the final theory.
Third theory.
Aphra Behn was married to a Dutch merchant called Johann Behn in the early 1660s. She would have taken his surname when they were wed. The name Aphra Behn would then be what she used when she was working, during a time when single women were limited in what they could do and their influence. So before that marriage, her surname could well have been Johnson or even Amos. We don't know a lot about her wedding to Johann Behn, but it's thought that he sadly died shortly after it happened. Although, thanks to him, Aphra knew how to speak Dutch, and that's why she was selected to be King Charles's spy in Antwerp.
Sorry, Tiernan, the marriage is still unverified. There's no evidence Johann, if he did exist, was a merchant or that he died after they were married, if they did marry. In fact, there's also some evidence she was engaged to a man called John Hulse. There is proof that the banns for their marriage, which is the intention to marry, were read 3 times at the church of St. Botolph in Aldgate, although there's no evidence for that marriage actually taking place. So, no one knows if Aphra Behn got her surname from a marriage that sadly ended shortly after, or if it was just something she made up as part of her job as a spy or career as a writer. Australian writer Germaine Greer called Behn a palimpsest. That's the name used when someone has written over another piece of writing, meaning the original words are very, very hard to read. And she was right. Aphra Behn wasn't ever mentioned in any tax or church records, and overall she was known by, as far as we know, at least 5 other names, including Anne Behn, Mrs. Behn, Mrs. Bean, Agent 160, and Astria. It could be that we know so little about her because sadly women of a lower class were thought of as unimportant in those times, even if they'd written a popular play or novel. But it could also be that Aphra Behn wanted to be mysterious and unknown. She often wrote plays about politics and rights for women, which were considered improper for a woman to do back then. Maybe by disguising who she really was, it kept Behn's family and past safe from anyone's attempts to discredit her or shame her for her work.
If I had that many names, I would struggle to remember which one I was meant to be using on any specific day. I'm sure I'd mess it up.
Oh, me too. I can't even remember what passwords are for what. So imagine trying to remember 8 different names and who to use them with. Can't be easy at all.
Crop circles made with... And the lottery numbers tonight for a whopping 200 billion zillion pounds are 6, 782, 31, 204, 68, 23, and the lucky ball is the ancient Greek sign for Demeter.
What? No way! Those are exactly my numbers! I can't believe it! I'm a zillionaire! What do I do? Oh gosh, wow.
If you are our very lucky winner tonight, call us right now on 08888 8888 8888
Right, I'm calling right now. I'm going to do it right now. Wow.
Hello and welcome to the Lottery Winners Hotline. Congratulations on having a winning ticket.
Thank you, I just can't believe it.
Well, if you've called us, then it looks like we'll be sending you 200 billion zillion pounds in a matter of minutes. Can I confirm the numbers on your ticket?
Yes, of course, it's 6, 7, 8, 2, 31, 204, 68 and 23.
And the lucky ball?
The ancient Greek sign of the meter.
Huge congratulations to you. OK, I just need a few details. What is your ticket number? It's on the top to the right.
Oh, it's 678213.
Great, and your full name, please?
It's Jiminy Grimplin.
I'm afraid that's not the name we have here.
Oh, right. Oh, I'm sorry. Hang on. I bought this ticket last Wednesday. Where was I last Wednesday?
Hello, are you still there? I will need a name.
Oh, yeah. I was just returning from 6 weeks undercover in a fishmonger's in
Hello?
Budapest. Yes, I'm here. Yes, I think it was Dominique Squibbles.
I'm so sorry, that's not the name we have on the account.
Drat. Geoffrey Narcles? Monsieur Emily Clive Oatcakes. No, large Greg Croissants.
I don't have any of those here. I'm so sorry, but if you can't pass the security check, I can't accept your ticket.
Wait, look. This is a breach of my top secret code, but I am a high-level spy for MI9, and I have to be disguised as so many people on so many different days of the week that I just can't remember who I was when I bought the ticket, okay?
I'm really not sure you should be telling me this.
No, I shouldn't. It's very dangerous knowledge to have, and there are probably officials listening to this call who will shut you down any second for knowing too much, so please. I was going to buy a little villa in Bognor Regis and live the rest of my life collecting whelks. You have to help me.
Okay, I understand it. It all must be very overwhelming. There is one thing we could do.
Really?
Yes, instead of your name, how about we just take your date of birth?
Oh, drats.
Wow, these top secret spies just can't catch a break.
It must be really tough not being able to tell anyone how good you are at your job too, because if you do, then you're a terrible spy.
That is so tricky. Luckily, we know the chief detectives are amazing at their job, and now it's time for you all to decide.
Is Aphra Behn's past a mystery, or do we have enough evidence to know who she really was and where she came from?
It's Recap the Theories time.
Theory Recap.
The first theory comes from an essay in the late 1600s that claims Aphra Behn was the daughter of Mr. and Mrs. John Johnson. John Johnson was the Lieutenant General of Suriname in South America. There is a baptism certificate for Aphra Johnson, and that's thought to be Behn's real name. It's assumed Behn lived in Suriname as a young child before returning to the UK, and that's what influenced her most famous book, which is set in the same country.
But there's no proof Aphra Behn's name was ever Aphra Johnson, and much of the other information comes from Aphra Behn's own fictional book, so it's very hard to use it as evidence. Also, if she had been from a wealthy family, why did none of her friends in the arts ever mention it?
The second theory suggests that Aphra Behn is actually the daughter of a barber. One of her friends made this claim and mentioned it in their writings. This is also something later biographers of Aphra Behn's life have thought. Their names were John and Amy Amos, and they lived in Y, Kent, which is also the location on the baptism certificate.
But there were other reports that say the barber's name was Bartholomew Johnson, which might fit with the Aphra Johnson name, but he wasn't Lieutenant General of Suriname. Also, Aphra Behn's knowledge of languages, literature and more show that she went to school. That's not something the daughter of a barber in the 17th century could afford.
The final theory is that Aphra Behn was married to a Dutch merchant called Johan Behn, who died shortly after they were wed. There is evidence they intended to marry at a church in Aldgate. Aphra used Johan's surname for her professional life and had learned Dutch from him too, and that's why King Charles hired her as a spy.
Except there's no evidence of Aphra Behn ever being married to Johan Behn. There is some evidence she was engaged to a man called John House, but it's not clear if their marriage ever happened. Aphra Behn was a real woman of mystery. We aren't sure if that is because as a woman from a poor background, she was thought of as unimportant back then, so her life wasn't documented, or if it was that she chose to be unknown to protect herself because of the controversy caused by her political writing.
So now we're handing it over to you, Chief Detectives.
What do you think? Are you with me and think Aphra Behn's past remains unknown?
Or are you a team truster and think, actually, we've cracked the case and know exactly where Aphra Behn came from? Get in touch and let us know your thoughts, and most importantly, which side you're on. I think Aphra Behn would have joined Team Truster on this with at least 7 different names.
No way, you'd need to be a really top spy to convince anyone to go anywhere other than Team Buster. Send us your voice notes with an explanation of why you're a myth truster or myth buster when it comes to whether Aphra Behn's past is a mystery or not.
All you have to do is ask your grown-ups to help you email us your voice notes or thoughts to hello@bustortrust.com.
Tell us your name, age, what you think all the evidence means, and please make sure your grown-ups give us permission to use your voice notes or emails in our next episode. We won't always be able to use all of them.
But we do love to hear them, and here are some thoughts from you lot, our chief detectives, on the last few episodes.
Hello, I'm Barney. I'm from Portland, Oregon. I'm 8 years old, and I think I am a team buster and truster for the Trojan War, because I don't think the gods and Achilles being immortal besides his heel was actually real, but I think the war might have happened.
Barney, that is some brilliant examining of the evidence. You're both on bust and trust. And I think you're right. I think Achilles probably wasn't just weak only in his heel. I'm sure he had a slightly rubbish nose or something that if you bopped it, he'd fall over. But I do think that the war happened too. So well done on being Team Truster for that. Thanks so much for listening.
Hi, my name is Alma, and I am 8 years old. I am a buster for Mothman because if he was real, he would have appeared before World War I and II. I love listening to Bust or Trust and also super great kids stories. Thank you.
Well, Alma, welcome to Team Buster, and also super glad to hear you listen to our sister podcast as well.
Alma, brilliant examining of the evidence, but I do have to say, maybe the Mothman couldn't appear before World War I or World War II because there was a really bright light on somewhere and they had to flutter around in front of that.
Thank you to all of you for your voice notes and comments. What fantastic feedback. We make a fantastic team.
What a brilliant bunch of listeners. Thank you so much. And if you enjoyed the show, please follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify or Amazon Music or wherever you listen to your podcasts for more great episodes.
We love to hear what you think, so please do rate and review us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. It helps more detectives find Bust or Trust.
And a huge thanks to all of you who are supporting the show on Patreon. You really are helping us make more Bust or Trust.
Let us know through Patreon if you have a message for us or a shout-out request. Every Patreon supporter gets one.
Head to patreon.com/Bust or Trust to subscribe and get access to Bust or Trust HQ. In the briefing room, you'll find extended episodes with bonus evidence, weekly newsletters, monthly colouring sheets, and more.
Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time for more Bust or Trust.
Athena, it's time for you to own up. Doing some very difficult and complicated research, I know you go by the names of Athena, and also sometimes Athena, or maybe even Athena, and that you work at Bust or Trust HQ.
Wow, well done. I've no idea how you discovered any of those things about my top secret life.
Thank you, but don't try to distract me. Who are you really, so-called Athena?
Tiernan, don't worry. My real name is definitely Athena, and I am definitely just me.
Bzzz, Robot Athena is low on battery. Bzzz, Robot Athena needs charging. Plug me in, I need charging.
What? I've been working with a robot? Athena!
Got you again.